Well, I realized that we've got a couple of more things that we need to do before we're done rigging the character. Now, in the original design for this character, I had a hammer and a shield. And I've already modeled and textured those. I just need to bring them in and then parent them to the rig. So let's do that. All right, so first of all, I've got a hammer here. I'm going to go over to File and Append. And I want to append a new object into the scene. So when I click on this object, you can see I get a list of possible things I could import. I could import a material, or I could import an object, or a world, or a scene, or whatever. But I'm going to import an object here. And when I click on object, I can see the name of the object. So I'm going to select that. And then I'm just going to come over here and click Append from Library. And that brings it into the scene. And there it is. It's huge. I'm going to deselect it and select it again. And there it is. So now I need to scale it down a bit and put it into place. So I'll hit the S key and scale it down some. And you can see it's pretty big compared to the character. I'm going to press the N key to bring up the Properties panel and come over here. And for the scale, I've tested this out before, and it seemed to me like a scale of about 0.0525 or something like that was pretty good. Let's try that. I'm going to also press Control, Alt, and Q, and that will bring up the quad view, so I can see this from different angles. Let me bring this down here like this. And I'm going to try and just put it in his hand. I'll turn it so it's in line with the hand. Actually, one thing I should do is I'm going to move the pivot point about to where he's going to be holding it. I think it'll be easier to move around if I do that. So I'm going to press Control-Alt-Q again to get out of that quad view. And I'll move the cursor with Shift-S to the selected object. And then I'm going to come over here with the N key to open up the Properties panel. And if I scroll down, I've got this 3D cursor XYZ fields. And I'm just going to click and drag on the Z, and you can see I can just move that cursor right up and down along the hammer. So I think maybe he's going to hold it right about here, let's say. Now I want to move the origin of the object to that 3D cursor. And there we go. Now when I go back to Control-Alt-Q and rotate it a bit, it'll rotate at that point now. So here's the trick, is to try and get it to be in his hand in a relatively believable way. Now that I've got it here, I want to spin it around. I want to rotate it so the angle of the hammer is kind of in line with the arm. But if I tried to do that here in global mode, that would throw it off, I think. So I'm going to switch to local mode. And now when I spin it, I should be able to spin it right in line like that. So I'm going to, I think, spin it so it's in line with his arm like that. All right, Control-Alt-Q, and let's see if we can now adjust the fingers to wrap around the handle. So I'm going to press the period key on the numpad and zoom into the handle here, or to the hammer, and I'm going to choose a control object for the rig here, and it's already in pose mode, and that's good. But what I want to do is come over here to this armature panel and turn on X-ray just so I can see the controls through the character. And I think I want, maybe let's begin with this joint, and I'm going to just move the thumb out a bit. And then maybe I'll scale it in with this control, like that. Let's see how that works. And then let's work on these fingers here. Now, if I took all of these controls, selected all of them at the same time, and then clicked and dragged, I could rotate those. But it's kind of going through the handle. I may have that a little bit too close. Let's see what I can do here. I think I'll bring it down just a little bit. All right, I'll try that again. So I can bring them in just a little bit here. And then if I select all of these controls and then scale these in, I'll hit the S key and scale these in. All right, I think we've got the hammer pretty well in place. Let's go ahead and parent it to the rig. Now, how do we get this hammer to stay with the hand wherever it goes? The way we can do that is to parent it to one of the bones. And if we look at the vertex groups of the character here, I just select the character. Let me bring this up here. We can see that the vertex groups all begin with DEF, and that's for the deformed bones. Now, all of the vertex groups were generated from the bones, from the deformed bones, when the rig was being created. So we know we've got deformed bones in there. We can't see them at this point in time. If I hit the Z key, you can see they're hidden away. So, how do we find them? Well, let's come up here to the outliner, and in the outliner I'm going to use the search tool, and if I type in up here DEF and I'll do a dash, we can see we've got a lot of bones here that begin with DEF. What we're looking for is the deformed hand left, and there it is right there. So when I select that, the armature panel comes up down here, and you can see there's a little orange dot here telling us that that's the layer that that bone is in. And the reason why we can't see it is because that layer isn't selected. So if I press Shift and click that layer, you can now see the deformed bones. And that's the bone right there that we want to parent this hammer to. So let's select the hammer, Shift select that bone, and then press Control P, and we want to set the parent to the bone. So we click that. Now, if I select that hand IK control, and if I move that around, you can see that I will move the hammer as well. So there we go. All right, I'm going to press Shift and click this layer once again to hide those again. Now we need to bring in our shield. So let's work on that. I'm going to do the same thing here by going to File and Append, and this time instead of the hammer I want the shield. So I'll click that, go to Object, select the shield object, and Append. And there it is, and it once again is huge. So now we got to go through the same process. The problem is while I'm moving the shield here, I need to think about what I want to do. I'm not sure if I want to parent this shield to the forearm bone or if I want to parent it to the hand bone. I'm going to have issues either way, and I'll show you what I mean. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and move this into place. I'm going to go back to the quad view with Control-Alt-Q, and I'll kind of move this into place. We're going to need to scale it down some. It's more like an umbrella than a shield here. Let's see how this works. I kind of want it to be a little bit smaller than the distance up to his armor. I kind of want it to be I don't want it to overlap that shoulder armor here. I'll select these finger controls and scale these in to try and wrap the fingers around that strap there. And also the thumb as well. I think I can maybe, let's try that. Let's go ahead and scale that in and see what happens. Yeah, that's not bad. All right, so what I meant about trying to figure out what bone to parent it to is that no matter what I do, I think I'm going to be dealing with some counter keying or having to move the arm and then rotate the shield or the hand or something to get it to work together. In other words, because I've made this the way I did with these two straps, it's going to be a little bit difficult to control. Now, had I created the rig from scratch, I may have created the bone structure of the forearm and the hand kind of as all one piece, so I wouldn't have to deal with this. But let's give this a try. I'm going to open this up and see if I can find the forearm. Let me see if I just type in F here. OR. There we go. There are the forearms. So down here are the vertex groups. I don't want those. Up here, though, this is what I want. Now, I'm going to select one of these on the right, and that same layer lights up, so I'll shift-click that. Now I can see the bones in here. So there's the forearm 1, here's forearm 2, and down here is the hand. So if I parented to this forearm, let's try this. I'm going to parent to this bone right here. So I'll select that shield, shift select that bone, press Control P, and parent it to the bone. Now, if I select that IK handle and hit G and move around, you can see the shield comes along with the forearm, but look at the hand. So the hand's a little off. So now, what I mean by counter keying, if that's where I want the shield to be for this particular pose, I then need to rotate the hand into place on the shield. And that may be easier said than done. See how it's the rotation of the forearm and the hand are connected through constraints. I'm going to undo that a ways till I get back to where I was. And now I'm going to unparent this. To unparent, I'll press Alt-P and then clear parent, choosing the shield and then clearing that parent. Now, one thing I ought to do, and what I didn't do with the hammer, let me press the N key for the Properties panel, is to apply the transformations. Now, I've got this where I want it to be. I need this to be its 0 location, and you can see here that it's got values in the location and the rotation and the scale. So I need to apply those. So I'll press Control A and apply the rotation and scale, and then I'll press Control A and apply the location. There we go. So I'm going to need to go back and do that for the hammer as well, I think. Probably be a good idea. All right, so I tried this bone. Let's try this bone up here. This looks like it's the forearm 1, so let's try this one. So I'll select the shield, shift select that forearm 1, Control P, set the parent to the bone, and now let's select the hand and move it around. Okay, well, that's all right. If I wanted to move the hammer to that position, now let's see if I can get that hand in place. If I press R and rotate it a little bit like this, it appears that I can get that hand into place pretty easily, that the rotation of the forearm isn't constrained at all to the hand, or this particular forearm bone, I should say. All right, well, that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, I'm going to undo here. Another way to do it is to parent to the hand. If I select that shield, press Alt-P to clear the parent. And now, if I select the shield and shift-select this bone, I'll press Control-P, set the parent to the bone, and now if I select that IK handle and move it around, you can see it's now parented to the hand. But the problem is, you see, look at the forearm strap there. So once again, I've got some counter keying to do to get it into place. So it really depends on what I want to do here. I think for me, I'm going to want to go with this bone here. I think I'm going to probably go with the forearm bone because it seems to me to be easier just to counter key the hand than the whole shield like this. All right, I'm going to shift select this layer here to hide those. And now I think we're about ready to animate. I'm going to come over here to the outliner real quick and delete that. So I get the list of all my objects now in the outliner. And so there's our character. We're going to begin animating him. I think the first thing we'll do is an idle.